Welcome, one and all, to V8's Online for our live broadcast of the Monday night iRacing official V8 Supercar series. We're here at Phillip Island tonight for what is sure to be an absolutely fantastic race. I'm Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box is Zach Hanlon. And Zach, wow, have a look at this championship. Isn't it cool?
Yeah, Reese, it is looking very cool at the moment. We're going to get a graphic up for you in just a moment, which is detailing our current championship standings. Now, with these championship standings, what we've done is we've counted the best 6 rounds from the championship so far, as there are drop rounds where points will not be taken at the end of the season. And this is what the championship looks like as a result of those best 6 rounds. So as we can see right now, Marlon McMullen and Dane Warren, who have been toing and froing throughout this entire series, are tied for 1,127 points. That is definitely not something we see very often. And with only 3 races left towards the end of the championship, I can see this battle heating up very, very nicely.
Oh yeah, certainly. This fight between Marlon and Dane across the season has been absolutely enthralling to watch. I remember, Zach, you and Bo Albert commentating on the Donington Park race, and it was certainly a very exciting battle for the lead. Dane Warren catching up to and passing Marlon McMullen. And hopefully, in Marlon's case, he'll be hoping to get back Dane this week at Phillip Island, which is a bit of a different circuit to Donington Park. It's still very flowing. It's still got a pretty high average speed, but Phillip Island is a bit longer than Donington Park. It's got a bit more up and down, and it's got some prime overtaking opportunities, particularly at turn 4, Honda Corner. And in many V8 Supercar races we've seen at this track in the past, it's certainly been the scene of much chaos. We've got a huge amount of sign-ups in this race tonight. 19 people have set qualifying times so far in this session, but Dane Warren currently pole on a 28.990, but facing a bit of a threat from Richard Hamstead in second and Wayne Burke in third. In fact, Forzan El Nabi is almost in there with a shot as well.
Yeah, Dane Warren definitely can't feel too safe here. These guys are within, we've got 3 guys who are within a tenth of him. And Brenton Hobson, Mitchell Selak, and Marlon are just slightly behind now. Marlon did improve on his second lap. However, it wasn't enough to jump himself up the order at all. So one of our championship contenders there, Marlon McMullen, is going to have to satisfy himself with either 7th, or if some other guys can chuck in some nicer times, he may be starting lower than that. Dane has improved, and we'll just see if we can have a look for Richard Hamstead. Looks like he's going fairly slowly, so I'd say that he's done his laps, and Wayne Burke is in the pits. So most of the guys up the front have completed their 2 laps, as we see Riley Blythe just jumping up from 22nd up into 12th there, so an improvement for him on his second lap. But good to see a nice spread of drivers here. We're seeing a lot of competitors who have come all throughout the season, and I think given that Phillip Island is, I guess, a quote-unquote home track for most of the drivers in our field tonight, that's not surprising to see. I know this track's local for me, actually. I went to the Australian Endurance Championship round here last year. If you guys haven't been down to Phillip Island circuit, you need to, because it's one of the most beautiful places you'll ever go, and the track is so accessible. You can drive your car all the way around the track, and every view is just absolutely breathtaking, and then you can go and have a bit of a holiday in Melbourne if you like as well. But it looks like Dane's going to sit pretty high and happy on that time of a 1:28, the only person to dip it into the 1:28s, but he's got a lot of tough competition here behind him.
Yeah, he certainly has. Dane Warren on pole, 1 minute 28.974. Just behind him, Richard Hamstead, a 1 minute 29.002. Wayne Burke, a 0.006. So only 4 thousandths of a second separating Richard Hamstead and Wayne Burke. Forzan El Nabi on a 29.027, and Brenton Hobson completing the top 5 in a 1 minute 29.13. At the moment, it seems that the only drivers to have not set a time are Corey Preston and Mario Vlasic. Mario it actually has been able to get a lap started very late in the session, but I was observing Preston, and it looks like he has not been able to set a proper lap time on either of his laps, so he will be starting from the back.
Yeah, and Corey's had some very rough luck the last couple of rounds. Donington last week, he started, I believe, around 4th and got pushed way down the order very early on. And again at Alton Park, he started very highly, and at Spa, he started very highly. And in each race, succumbed to a few issues and has subsequently not been able to put in a strong result. So it'll be interesting to see if Corey Preston can shuffle his way back through the pack here, as he has shown a lot of pace in a lot of rounds previously.
Well, the starting grid is on screen at the moment. Dane Warren, as we said, on pole with Richard Hampstead close behind in second. Third, Wayne Burke. Forzan El Nabi in fourth. Brenton Hobson fifth. Mitchell Sealack starting from sixth. Marlon McMullen facing a bit of an uphill battle versus Warren from seventh place. Ryan O'Sullivan will start from eighth. Ninth, Brian Borg. And rounding out the top 10, Guy Leach on a 1 minute 29.448.
We've got Brady Myers and Riley Blythe taking out row number 6 there. Then we've got Stuart Vaughan in 13th, Mario Vlasic in 14th. We've got Ross Rizzo in 15th position. Josh Burden, one of those guys who we don't see too often. Good to see you in here, Josh, starting from 16th position. We've got Greg Sharp and Michael Taliancic taking out row number 9, with Cooper Webster and Thomas Hinz finishing out the top 20. They're followed up by Jamie McKnight, who could probably be moving up through that order as well. He's been putting in some strong performances throughout this series. Christian Andres, Cameron Dance, and Corey Preston will start P24 on the back of your grid tonight.
Indeed he will, and this race is a 35-lap affair, so we got quite a bit of hard and fast racing to come here in the iRacing official V8 Supercar Online Series. I'm really looking forward to seeing what these guys can do in this race. It looks like we do have a bit of a fuel limit in this race, so the drivers will have to take a pit stop as the timer ticks down. We just have more and more drivers filtering onto the grid. Now, off the start here at Phillip Island, Zach, the run into turn 1 is not too long, and for the most part, you see outbraking maneuvers and a bit of craziness into turn 1 as the lights rise, the revs rise, sorry, and the green flag flies. Now, watch for the run into turn 1 as Richard Hampstead doesn't get quite as good a start. Very fast and flowing turn 1 here at the Phillip Island circuit. Dane Warren moves over to the optimum line, and it looks like Wayne Burke has managed to get past Richard Hampstead into turn 1, but Hampstead's going to try and do the over-under maneuver, but they come into the double apex turn 2 now. It looks like most of the drivers have managed to get through turn 1 cleanly.
Yeah, everyone doing a nice job getting through turn 1. That's usually a spot where you can have a massive pile-up on the first lap, but everyone coming through nicely. Now, Honda Corner, this is the next place you need to watch out. Big, heavy braking zone. As all these guys, there's a couple of taps in the mid-pack there. Looks like Brady Myers and Guy Leach getting a bit together there. Stuart Vaughan getting a bit taily coming out of that complex as well. But yeah, nice clean start from these guys so far, as a lot of these guys are still going 2 by 2 as they're coming through Siberian up to Hayshed and Licky Heights.
Yes, indeed, and they're going to go single file through here. McMullen has managed to maintain 7th spot, currently chasing down Mitchell Sealack, but he was forced back a bit on that lap, so he's going to have a couple of issues. El Nabi having some internet dramas, it seems. He's jumping around massively, but he's still managing to keep with Hampstead and Burke. Dane Warren, though, have a look at the gap that he has managed to pull at the end of lap 1.
Yeah, and that's something we've seen pretty consistently from Dane this season. He's been able to, at some tracks more than others, get... he's maintained the lead pretty much at the end of turn 1 most of the rounds this season, but he has been able to extend that gap very nicely, and it'll be interesting to see as well if Wayne and Richard are able to hold on to the back of Dane with their race pace. And I know there are guys like Forzan El Nabi who's very good at saving fuel and trying the alternate strategy, and with the fuel limit tonight, it is they do have a little more fuel, I believe, than they normally would. So that might allow a few of the guys to either pit significantly earlier than they normally would before the halfway mark, or extend it to, around the 60 to 70% complete area of the race, possibly. So it'll be interesting to see if those guys can use strategy to their advantage if they're not able to completely match the pace of Dane up the front.
Yeah, one of the guys that may have to make use of that strategy play is Ryan O'Sullivan. He's managed to find himself all the way back into second last place. I noticed earlier on he had a bit of an off at Siberia, and he's dropped all the way down to the back of the field. So from 8th place, he's got a lot of work to do. As just up ahead of him, I'm seeing a bit of jostling. Oh, goodness me. That's Christian Andres, Cooper Webster, Thomas Hinz, and Greg Sharp all fighting with each other here through the last couple of corners of the circuit. Have a look at Hinz trying to get the run here from Greg Sharp. Of course, Thomas Hinz, one of the newest signings to All-Star Motorsports. He's been hung out to dry a bit on the outside of the last turn, which is going to leave him open to an attack from Cooper Webster. He's currently in Greg Sharp's slipstream. And this is why we love Phillip Island so much as they come up to the start of lap 3. Oh, Webster just into the back of Sharp. But he's managed to hold on. Both of them have managed to hold on. Webster loses that position back to Hinz. Just behind them, Cameron Dance making his way past Christian Andres through turn 2. And now Andres is going to be open to Jamie McKnight here. Have a look at the amount of jostling we've got back in the pack here. This is fantastic racing.
Yeah, this is a good little battle, and Ryan Sullivan is one of the guys that's got the most pace out of this pack. He did have a couple of unfortunate incidents on that first lap, so it'll be interesting to see how he works his way through this battle pack, as he's already starting to make up positions already. But these guys are being very aggressive, and it all started off through this complex here through Hayshed on the previous lap when Greg Sharp ran a little wide and had to check up a bit, and that got everyone right on the back of him. And Thomas has been applying some good pressure, but Cooper Webster and Cameron Dance and Jamie McKnight are all there, and I think the only person in this pack is Ryan O'Sullivan just tags Christian Andres there. Looks like Christian was going to defend the inside very, very heavily, and Ryan tried to make a bit of room for himself there, but he does manage to get that position, and he'll be looking to push up to the guys ahead of him. But
yes, he will.
Yeah, some nice racing the first couple of laps. It seems like throughout the rest of the pack, everyone's mostly single file, just cruising along.
Yes, indeed.
But everyone's staying very, very closely together. The top 7 cars still separated by only 4 seconds, and the next 4 cars after that separated by 4 seconds as well. So good consistent pace from most of the pack here, which will definitely give us some good racing towards the end.
Yeah, certainly will. And I want to draw your attention to something. This big battle pack we've been watching as Hinz goes side by side with Webster through Honda. All this battling has really worked out well for Joshua Burden and Michael Taliancic. They've been involved in their own little battle, but all of that fighting back behind them has allowed them to break away from that pack. So they're involved in a little bit of a battle of their own coming through Siberia, and it seems like, for the most part, at least for the next corner, those battles have been worked out.
Yeah, I'm just noticing, looks like Jamie McKnight's dropped off in some capacity. Not sure exactly what's happened there, but I did notice as well that Christian Andres was driving very slowly, so might have to see if we can get some information on what happened there for you, but
I did notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was having some internet dramas. It looks like he has dropped from the server, so that's a real shame for him. But Brady Myers and Brian Borg, meanwhile, having one hell of a battle. Guy Leach just behind them, along with Riley Blythe. But tell you what, Brady, his performances in the last year or so in the V8 Supercar have been something to behold, and now he's facing major pressure from Brian Borg, one of the guys who's been in this car for some time now. Borg looked for a move there, but wasn't quite able to get it done. At the moment, I think it's just a case of trying to pressure the guy in front of you and not try and force a move.
Yeah, that's I think that's a lot of what we've seen throughout this entire series. These cars are extremely difficult to drive, and I was even doing some testing a couple of weeks ago, and watching these guys go around here, I went, how do they do it? They're so smooth, and they're so, they're relatively consistent most of the time. It's so unbelievably difficult to drive these cars. So when you make a mistake, which is very easy to do, that's when we see a lot of the overtaking opportunities opening up for these guys. And Brady Myers, you're right, he's been putting in some really nice results. I think he got a podium result back at Imola, if I'm not mistaken. And in the few appearances that he has been making this year, he's been doing very well for himself. And it's good that he can trust, it's good having drivers around you that can drive the car as well. So you're not worried if someone might come plowing into you in the braking zone because they locked up a brake or something like that. So I think that'll help Brady as well, knowing that these guys behind him do know how to drive the cars very well, and he can defend with confidence. And Riley Blythe just on the back of these guys at the moment, looking very racy on Guy Leach, but Guy's going to go for the defensive line and force Riley to cut back out and go back in single file.
Well, that's quite something to behold at the moment, but we're going to look at the leaders at the moment. Seems like the top four have managed to break away from the rest of the field. I'm noticing McMullen has fallen back a bit from Cielac, so Dane Warren here in the lead is going to be really enjoying the sight of that. Marlon McMullen that far down definitely will be helping his championship, but at the same time, he still has to keep a close eye on his mirrors because he has got the Synergy Sim Racing number 9 Commodore of Wayne Burke right behind him. And looking down this front straight, the draft comes in massively down here. You really want to be careful, but at the same time, you also have the chance to fuel save a little bit, which can really help your pit stop.
Yeah, and these guys are actually much closer than I expected them to be at this stage of the race. I was just having a look at the lap times, and I think there's a possibility that Dane could be fuel saving. I might go on board with him and just see how he's plodding along, but his lap time comparative to his fastest lap is significantly slower. It has been significantly slower the last 2 laps, and the guys behind him have been lapping at the exact same pace. Just for reference, Dane's best lap, is a 1:29.0, and his last 2 laps were a 1:29.7 and a 1:29.8. So, I mean, I did say these cars were hard to drive, so there is every possibility that Dane hasn't made a mistake on the last couple of laps and hasn't been able to keep up the pace that he should be, or he could be doing a bit of fuel saving, although I have to say, listening to him on board, I can't say for certain that that's the case.
Well, considering the fact that these guys are all so close to each other in terms of qualifying pace, I'd say it might be the tyres just starting to go off slightly. Maybe they're pushing them very hard around this circuit with a lot of high-load corners. I know that iRacing's tyres, the way they are now, once they start to heat up and get worked out a bit, they tend to lose a bit more grip. So that might be the case here. Dane did another 29, high 29 that lap by, and have a look at Richard Hampstead. See how he's double apexing that corner, getting a better run. It's very easy to understeer through that corner, but this is very much a stalemate battle at the front at the moment.
Yeah, I think one of the guys to watch out for as well could be Forzan El Nabi. He did a nice lap before. He obviously does have about 3 cars worth of tow, which possibly could have helped him out on that lap. But it's Dane, just getting a nice little slide coming out of Siberia there. But all these guys are looking in a very healthy position. We're 8 laps in to this 35-lap race, and right behind the leader, or even within a second or 2 of the leader, is exactly where you want to be. And Forzan is just
Hampstead.
And Hampstead's going to fire it down the inside as Wayne just made a tiny mistake coming out of coming through MG there. So little mistake for Wayne and a nice pickup for Richard, but that's allowed Dane to just get a little bit more of a gap on these guys. And that's some nice breathing room where he might just be able to reset his focus and start charging away again. But I think you're right about the tyres. Just having a look at the track temp, it is a fairly low track temperature, so we would possibly expect the tyres to not have as much drop off as they may do in an afternoon setting. But the lap times from the top 4 guys are consistently 6 to 7 to even 8 tenths slower than their fastest laps. So that very well could be the case. So Dane trying to put his head down and clear as Wayne Seaburg right on the back, and Forzan El Nabi right on the back of Wayne as well. So this little battle at the pack is definitely going to hot up, and it does look like Forzan's just sitting back there taking some alternate lines and just kind of waiting for something to happen so that he can either make an opportunity, push his way through, or wait for the pit stops and make an opportunity for himself there.
Yeah, exactly, and that's one of the things that you got to consider when you're in a battle pack like this, trailing behind quite a few of these very fast guys, is the fact that they will battle very hard. They'll if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile in many cases. So if you're there, if a mistake does happen, and you'll be able to capitalize massively. And Forzan is doing everything that he needs to right now to stay on the back of Richard Hampstead and Wayne Burke, but Hampstead will officially move up to second on the iRacing timesheets, as Warren seems to have maintained that gap. Looking further back in the field, it looks like, aside from this battle up at the front, it's all very spread out.
Yeah, there's still that little pack. Riley Blythe and Guy Leach and Brady Myers have managed to pull themselves a little more away from Stuart Vaughan, Brian Borg, Ross Rizzo, and Michael Taliancic. But Michael has been putting in some lap times which would close him back up on Ross and Brian at the moment. And Michael is a very talented driver. We've seen him doing a lot of good work at Imola. As we just had a spin just in front of him, as Brian Borg has to take evasive action. And that was a hairy moment for the both of those guys there. Very lucky to make it through. We might see if we can get a cut price racing replay of Ross there and see what happened. But he was looks like he was just trying to fire it down the inside of Brian Borg and thought, no, it's not quite going to work. And Brian and Ross were very, very lucky not to have any contact there. That was extremely close. It was not so reminiscent of that James Courtney crash we saw many, many years ago. Not quite to the extent, but kind of similar there, as Ross just had to bail out of it.
Yeah, that's right. Looked to me like a little bit of a locking of the rears as well. Just firing out up the inside at Honda Corner is a very tempting thing to do, but sometimes the braking performance of the car just isn't up to scratch. And you'll see that happen with a few drivers, as Riley Blythe alongside Guy Leach into turn 1. Another popular place to try and attempt a move if you can get a good enough draft down the straight, but it looks like Blythe hasn't been able to get it done this time. Blythe has been looking pretty racy in these last couple of laps as I've been observing him. He had a little bit of a look up the inside of Honda Corner on the last lap. See if he does the same now. He is coming out to have a little bit of a look. Oh, hang on a minute. Leach is going wide here, so he obviously saw Riley coming. But they're going to go side by side once again here into I forget what this corner is called. Help me, Zach.
Siberia.
That's Siberia. That is Siberia. I keep getting it confused, and this is Hayshed. I'm good with names, but Riley Blythe is completing the move there on Guy Leach after a bit of side-by-side running. And that's him through into position number 9.
Yeah, a fairly good move there. I think Guy Leach kind of maybe gave that up a little too easily, but we're just going to travel back to the front now, as in the last couple of laps, Brenton Hobson and Mitchell Searlack have been plonking away and closing up on the back of Forzan El Nabi. So they're not quite there yet, but they are showing the pace to be catching up. And actually, Mitchell Searlack on that last lap as fast as everyone in the lead pack, with the exception of Richard Hampstead. So these guys, while it could, well, as Mitchell got very loose coming out of the southern loop there, but yeah, in the next 5 or 6 laps, if these guys keep up this performance, they could be right on the back of Forzan, and we could have a 6-way battle for the lead, which would be very exciting to see. This V8 Supercar series has not been disappointing at all the last few weeks on your Monday night iRacing official V8s.
Yeah, Mitchell Sealack was pushing very hard out of turn 1. That just shows you how much he wants to get up there with this lead pack. And Brenton Hobson as well. He late apexed Honda, which was an incredibly interesting line to take. So both of these guys trying new things. Oh, Forzan taking a little bit of an alternate line there out of MG. A little bit of oversteer dashed in there. The pit window is now open as the drivers cross the start-finish line for the 12th time to start lap 13. And hang on a minute, Richard Hampstead has actually caught back up to the back of Dane Warren here. Look at this. This is going to be a proper battle for the lead.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, we always like to see that. But Richard is a very talented V8 Supercar. I mean, he's not just a talented V8 driver. He's a very talented driver in general. So it's not surprising to see him be able to work his way up on the back of Dane. And you can see Dane is not... He's not holding back. He's using as much of the road as he can. And he's even going slightly defensive. Yeah, going a bit defensive going into Honda there. You would have expected him to have kept more to the left coming through that corner, but instead he decided that he wanted to go through the middle and give Richard less of a decision about what he might have been able to do there. So it'll be interesting to see these guys. They're lapping within very, very close times, but Richard has had the advantage on the last couple of laps. He's been doing zeros, and everyone else around in this 6-car pack has been either doing 1s, 2s, or 3s. So he could definitely... He's looking very good coming through turn 1 and 2. And he does look like he's got a really nice front end on that car, as he is right up on the back of Dane and seems to be smoother on the brake application as well. You see Dane tapping the brake a couple of times. Richard typically only using one touch of the pedal and alternating it as he sees fit, as Dane's going to go defensive into turn 1, and that's going to give Richard a really nice run, and he's going to try take around the outside, which will give him room for turn 2, the inside line, but he's had to cut back and just ride the back of the bumper of Dane there. And this is allowing Wayne Seaburg to close up on these guys as well, and it's not going to be helping these guys from getting away from Mitchell Sealack or Brenton Hobson either.
Yeah, have a look at that. Dane Warren and Richard Hampstead both going to the right on the run up to Honda corner. Hampstead keeping the line tight, trying to get the power down as efficiently as he can. Have a look at the difference in line here. Have a look at Wayne Burke. He's firing it straight to the inside. He's been doing that on every single lap, whereas Dane and Richard have been taking more of that smooth arc through the corner that you'd usually expect. But as they come through Hayshed for the 14th time, Richard is... Oh, I don't know. Would it be worth it to wait?
Well, I think one of the things to consider as well is that Richard's probably just here for a win and a bit of time on the telly, and Dane's here for the championship. You know, we haven't seen Richard in as many... yeah, that's always fun to see. But Richard hasn't attended as many of the races this season, and it would be pretty disappointing to see the championship contender taken out. Or not necessarily taken out, but, you know, have an incident involving a car that wasn't so, I guess, up there in terms of the championship. But, you know, there's nothing wrong with anyone coming along and racing as hard as they like to or not like to. That's the reason we all come here and do it, and that's the reason why everyone comes to watch. So it's always good to see a battle, but it will be interesting to see if Richard is less aggressive, shall we say, due to the fact that he may not be in contention for this championship as heavily as Dane is.
Yes, well, our first pitters, the two synergy cars of Wayne Burke and Brenton Hobson, are now out of the pits, and along with them, Riley Blythe and Greg Sharp pitted. Preston now into the pits as well. So Ross Rizzo, we're hearing, has already pitted as well. So those are your first people to blink in this pit window.
And Ross Rizzo got a very nice pit stop compared to everyone else there. But yeah, most of these guys all taking roughly around the same amount of fuel and tyres, you would say, based off the pit stop times that we're seeing at the moment. And I just want to have a look at the likes of Riley Blythe and Wayne Burke and just see how much traffic they have, as Brenton Hobson's actually run very wide in Honda on his outlap. So that's going to cause massive dramas for him. And I believe our leader, Dane Warren, and Forzan El Nabi, who was sitting in fourth position, and Brady Myers, who was in Mitchell Selak, pardon me, are all in the pits right now. So covering off those...
Oh, El Nabi overshot his pit box.
Oh, that's a shame. That's going to cost him a massive amount of time.
Let's have a look at Burke here. Yeah. What kind of undercut is he going to get? He's coming through the last turn now. This is what I was thinking. Maybe it would have been beneficial for Dane to pit first, because then it would have given him a bit more of a run. He's lost time, and Wayne Burke is going to go into the lead of this race, the effective lead.
There you go. Nice move, Wayne Burke. And Brady Myers will be kicking himself, because he would have been following Wayne had he not made that mistake. So Wayne has just pulled an absolute beauty there. He managed to hit his marks nicely in the pit stop and came out, put in a good outlap. And Forzan El Nabi's actually jumped Dane Warren as well. So just like last week, Dane's going to have some work to do. And I might just have a look into the pit times of the likes of Dane Warren. He was about 2 seconds longer than Mitchell, but 5 seconds longer than Forzan El Nabi. So that's a massive advantage to Wayne Burke and Forzan El Nabi. And given the pace that Dane's had relative to these guys previously, he is not going to be able to catch them quickly. Luckily, we are still before the halfway point of this race, so he's got plenty of time to catch back up. But yeah, a couple of fodders in the pits for Dane in the last couple of weeks have really not been keeping his anxiety levels low, that's for sure.
No, certainly not. Guy Leach and Brady Myers, meanwhile, have just come into the pits. Ryan O'Sullivan as well. That's interesting from O'Sullivan. Looks like he just he pulled into the box lane and then steered around Leach and Myers just to get to his box. That was very strange, but looks like Brady Myers has just come out behind Ross Rizzo and Riley Blythe, who are making their way through. Brenton Hobson just ahead of them, with Christian Andres up in 10th spot. He has not pitted yet, has Christian, so these guys may make short work of passing him. We'll see what happens here.
And meanwhile, Richard Hampstead, who was position number 2, right on the tail of Dane Warren before the pits, is still he's still going around the circuit at the moment, and he has not pulled into the pit lane this time around. Now, last lap, he did a 1:30.2. Dane Warren, we'll see when he comes over the line and see what kind of times he's putting in, but I would expect those guys to be in the 1:29s, which would put Richard as about a second a lap slower than those guys, but we'll have to watch those times trickle through in the next as Wayne Burke puts in a 1:29.6, so that's 7/10 faster the last time round than Richard Hampstead. So how long will Richard Hampstead stay out? Will he run the tank all the way to the end and use a shorter fill and fresher tyres to really pull his way back and push through the field at the end of the race? We've seen a lot of really good drives done like that in real life. Most notably, I think recently was Charles Leclerc in the Formula 2 at Bahrain last year. So maybe Richard's going for that kind of approach, where he wants to be on the freshest tyres with the lowest amount of fuel and work his way back. But Still circulating the track at the moment, as is Josh Burden and Michael Taliancic as well, but they're about 20 seconds off the net lead at the moment. So, but still plenty of fuel in Richard's car, I'd say.
Yes, indeed. And talking about another TTL Esports driver, Cameron Dance, running in 4th place, is also one of the drivers to have not made their stop yet. Hampstead actually has pulled into the pits.
He has,
so
yes.
there he goes. I wonder if Burden and Taliancic will follow him in.
Well,
We'll
they're kind of running their own race, so it wouldn't surprise me to see them, especially Michael.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so we've got Josh has decided to pit there, and Michael Taliancic will continue circulating and will become your temporary race leader until he decides that he's down a fumes and he has to come in. But Michael is renowned, I guess, for, at least what I've seen of him, for running the tank a little long, sometimes too long, like we saw at Imola, where he came to a stop on the entry to turn 3 after running out of fuel. But we're just going to look at Richard Hampstead, and he's come out just behind Dane Warren, and it looks like Mitchell Sealak's just going to
let him
hold
go
back. And yeah, well, Richard's got some fresh tyres now and has been previously faster. Those guys are teammates, so they'll definitely be looking for a better result. And I don't think that Mitchell, given that he's car number 20, will be too disappointed with the top 3 at this stage. But, I mean, always looking to push for the win, but it's always a nice day when you can say that you came home with, you know, close to 100 iRating at the end of a race. So he may just want to let that go. But Forzan El Nabi and Wayne C. Burke, the gap is closing up the front. Forzan 0.3 of a lap faster the last time round than Wayne. So he's only got a deficit at the moment of, what is it, 0.9 of a second.
Yeah,
so
that's a pretty good pace from him, actually. Having a look at their lap times since the pit stops, a 29.4 and a 29.5 from Forzan, Wayne a 29.6 and a 29.8. So yeah, El Nabi definitely has the pace advantage right now over Wayne Burke. We'll see how they go coming around to the end of lap 19. Might we see a battle for the lead forming in the next probably 9 laps? Remember, this race is 35 laps, so we still got plenty of time for more battles to commence.
Yeah, I don't know, at 0.4 a lap, I think we'll be seeing it a little faster than that, because the last time round, a 130.0 plays the 129.6. So Forzan is closing up, and you can see as well that gap has reduced significantly, and they are leaving Dane for dust. Richard Hampstead is back on fresh rubber now, so he'll be pulling up, and he has recovered a tiny bit of that gap to Dane that he had at the beginning, or since he's come out of the pits. So won't be surprised to see him put in a good lap time as well. So Dane Warren struggling for pace, and something to consider. Last week we saw Dane having an issue where his fuel tank was fully filled rather than having it filled to the degree that he would have liked. Subsequently, he took on an extra 20 litres of fuel. Now, at this track, the fuel tank is extended by an extra 30 litres, so Dane could be carrying as much as possibly 30 or 40 litres worth of fuel more than he wants to be carrying right now, and that is going to affect his car speed dramatically. I'm not sure that's the case, but just based off what we have seen previously, it would be wrong to completely count it out. And we'll see as Richard Hampstead comes over the line now what his pace is like, because he has pulled away from Mitchell Sealak quite dramatically.
0.6.
Yeah. And
battle for the lead though. Wayne Burke and Wayne Burke and Forzan El Nabi, sorry. This is the battle for the effective lead. Michael Taliancic still running way up front, as he still has not pitted, but El Nabi is now right on the back of Burke, almost going side by side through Stoner Corner. El Nabi's going to hold back here through Honda. So big battle commencing right now. You see that difference in lines once again. Burke firing it straight to the inside of Siberia. but it's not helping him in this regard at the moment. Forzan El Nabi has well and truly got the better of him here.
Yeah, and I think Forzan will want to make this, I guess, as cutthroat, as clean, and as quick as he possibly can, because any battling that he's going to be doing with Wayne is going to be affecting the gap to Dane behind, and I don't think that either of these guys really want much of a possibility of him catching up, but I think the real threat at the moment, more than Dane, is Richard Hamstead. He is absolutely flying right now as Michael Taliancic finally makes his way into the pit. So Wayne C. Burke is going to come around, your official leader of this race, and that is the effective lead of this race as well. So I think Forzan may try to apply as little pressure as possible until he feels that he's extremely comfortable, and is absolutely certain that he's going to be able to make that move, because he really doesn't want to give up any time to Richard, especially having a car between him and Richard at this stage is a real big help. And El Nabi now poking his nose out as they exit the southern loop, and I would not be, he's going to tuck back in, and that's what I'm talking about without applying that pressure as well. It means they can both take that same line and not lose any of the time to the guys behind.
Well, I tell you what, it's occurred to me that maybe Forzan might be trying to save a little bit of rubber. Perhaps he's seen the pace drop off in that first stint, and now that he's got some fresh boots on the car, he'll be looking to save as much of that rubber as he can, try and get past Wayne Burke without using too much of it, and then he'll be able to preserve some more of that pace.
Yeah, well, that's a very legitimate strategy. I mean, there's nothing better than having clean, good rubber that's not hot and plenty of fuel to get you to the end. So making sure that you have both of those things is very, very important. And Dane is coming under pressure as well from Richard Hamstead, who did pit later than these guys and has been putting in some very impressive times. The last lap round, Richard was 0.6 faster than Dane, so he's going to have a look, I reckon, coming out of the southern loop, just trying to go for taking a wider entry, and that's going to allow him to run a little wider and cut back in towards the end of the corner, which is going to give him a nice straight traction zone coming out. And he is right on the back of Dane, but I just don't know if he's quite close enough to really be able to fire one down the inside, but
he's going to have a look.
He's going to have a look. He's going to say, Dane, you're going to let me through. He's going to lock up the rears a little bit.
A little bit of contact.
Contact a little bit, but there's nothing like scraping a couple of doors in V8s. That's perfectly fine. And Richard Hamstead is going to come on through. So now I think Forzan, this is where he needs to start worrying, because if he doesn't put another car between him and Hamstead has a clear pace advantage over everybody by at least half a second right now.
And a clear track for the most
Exactly.
part.
And with a gap of only 2.5 seconds to Forzan, that's effectively only 4 laps you kind of have until you have a problem. And with 12 laps remaining in that race, I'm sure that most of you at home can figure out why he would be finding that a bit of a problem. So El Nabi has dropped off slightly off Wayne, not sitting as close as he was the last time round. So maybe he is just conserving a little bit, and I really can't imagine that he wants to get this into a 3-way battle for the lead.
Oh no, that would not be optimal.
No.
Having said all of this, I'm noticing that Burke is actually starting to crack under the pressure that El Nabi is applying. I noticed out of the second last turn, he had a few little oversteer moments, and again, I saw it out of Southern Loop, just a tiny little slide. So the rears may not be quite to Wayne Burke's liking. El Nabi having a look now at the inside into Honda, and he's going to go for that move, and Wayne Burke saw him coming and is going to let him through. So that is the pass for the lead. Forzan El Nabi is the leader of this race now. So that, as you said, Zach, that's exactly what Forzan wants. Another car between him and Richard Hamstead.
Yeah, and that's really, really important for him right now. He did a good job to just pull it up for that overtaking maneuver. I'm just watching it back now, but I do have to say that Wayne Burke was very polite in giving him probably a little more room than he could have, in that he probably wouldn't have wanted to have given them that much room, but did it to possibly avoid having an accident. But still Forzan's been showing the pace to be at the front of this pack, so he was there. He braked late enough. He managed to pull it up, and he slid into first place. So now he's got to see if he can not crack to the pressure that Wayne may be able to put on him in a sec, as Forzan just taking a interesting entry line into into the Doohan corner there.
That would have dirtied his tyres a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal, especially when you're coming into arguably the fastest, well, it is the fastest right-hander on the track, and you've just greased up your left-hand tyres, as we see Corey Preston just pulling over to one side and letting these guys through. Name we haven't really been speaking about much tonight. Corey has not been on the pace as much as we would have expected. He has actually put in some decent laps, but just hasn't been able to maintain that throughout the whole race. And I've been having a look as well a little further back in the pack. There is a big train from Brian Borg all the way back to Ryan O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
And it actually looks like Stuart Vaughan is going to make a move on Brian as he just takes a bit of a curve there, and they make a bit of contact. And that's going to fire Cooper Webster around the outside through Siberia as well. See if he can hold on to that. And Michael Taliancic might look to make a move from this as well. Brian Borg in a very difficult situation here. He's got 3 team cars all around him, so they're going to be possibly talking to each other and saying, hey, where can we put Borgie so that we can all get through here? And they've got Josh Burton and Ryan O'Sullivan right behind them too. So
yeah,
Brian Borg's not going to be able to put a foot wrong as he's going defensive. And actually, nice little move from Burton there. And he's going to have to go around the outside through turn 11. That's not necessarily the worst thing, because you can cut back and even hold it around the outside to get a good line. And Ryan O'Sullivan's going to try and take advantage of that as well.
What a run from Burton. Have a look at that. He was able to take advantage.
That's the payoff.
Yeah, that traction on the outside worked out fantastically for Burton. Have a look at O'Sullivan trying to fire it right through on the inside into turn 1. He's managed to make it work. Burton trying to do the over and under, but that's just putting his car in a different place. He's not able to get it done. And then Michael Taliancic is able to get back by him as a result. But can Burton do the same thing that he did at the last turn? Hold the traction on the outside? No, he can't do it, but he does have a little bit of a run. He might have to try and get through again at Honda Corner. You can see the pace advantage that Burton has. It's up ahead. Brian Borg now makes the move on Cooper Webster here. Oh, but Burton not able to get it done.
Brian lost it!
Oh, no! Have a look at that.
He's managed to keep it on the track, but he's going to have to concede a couple of positions there as he just got way too wild coming out of Honda Corner there. Very, very lucky to, he controlled the throttle nicely enough. He probably could have gotten off it a little earlier, but nice work there, Brian, keeping it all together. But, yeah, nice little pack here. Ryan O'Sullivan +2. Michael Taliancic, I think, or he's actually...
Whoa, hold on.
Michael's going to fire it up the inside of Brian Borg, and he's going to maybe do what Josh Burton did the last lap and keep it around the outside. He's still...
tucks back in.
Yeah, he's lost the crossover there, so he's had to tuck back in, but... yeah, Ryan O'Sullivan +3 positions out of that lap.
It's worked out very well for him.
Yeah, I think Michael's in the same place that he was, despite swapping positions about 17 times. And Josh Burton's actually lost out of all of that. So, unfortunate for him, but not unfortunate for us, as they're going to go too wide through turn 1 once again. That's going to
almost touching axles.
Yeah, they're doing a very good job of keeping very close and rubbing a tiny bit, but not hitting people so much that it, I guess, alters the trajectory of the car that they're racing against, which is always nice to see. Always good to see a little bit of door rubbing, but not too much bashing, I guess you would call it.
Of course. And with reference to that, I think the pass that Vaughan put on Brian Borg might have been just borderline close to door bashing. I saw it was quite an optimistic braking move, and hang on a minute, I just saw a car go off. Who was that?
Did not see that. It could have been Corey Preston. Yeah,
just off at Siberia. So, unfortunately, his race has come to an end. Very unfortunate for Corey. But yeah, that pass on Borg from Vaughan is what started that whole kerfuffle that lasted for the next 1.5 laps. Just fantastic racing. And Vaughan out of all of that, he's managed to get one hell of a gap.
Yeah, well, that's massive for him right now because these guys have all been in a very intense little train for the last 5 or 6 laps. I've been watching them from time to time, and they've just been going all the way. That's been trailing each other all the way around this track. But now we're going to go up to the battle for the lead as Richard Hampstead is closing right up on Wayne Burke and subsequently closing up on Forzan El Nabi, our race leader. Richard Hampstead with an advantage over Wayne last time round by 4/10, only a tenth over Forzan, but it's all very well and good for Richard to get up here, but making a move and not losing any time because of that move is going to be difficult. We saw Forzan had to stick behind Wayne for a few laps to be able to find an opportunity to push himself through, and Richard may have to do the same.
Yeah,
He's got a little bit more of a pace advantage, I'd say, compared to Forzan, so that could help him quite significantly, and he is on slightly fresher tyres. Wayne was obviously the first guys of this pack to jump and say, it's time for me to try something different, and Richard was the last, so he's got that fresher rubber, and that could definitely help him as he tries to make himself past Wayne.
Yeah, and I was going to say, one part, that basically the only part of the track where you can put a move on someone and not lose much time is what Forzan El Nabi's coming up to now, Honda Corner, because it's a slow corner followed by a very short run to another slow medium speed corner. No other corner on the track is like that. You've got MG, which is the slowest corner on the circuit, but the way that it's set up in relation to the corners after it means that you can start a move at MG, but you won't be able to quite get it done unless you have massively superior traction to the guy you're trying to pass. So we actually saw the guys who were making moves at MG, they just weren't able to make it stick unless, they did a Josh Burden and had awesome traction.
Yeah, and I mean, that does come down to a lot of the track temperature and how much tyres these guys have left, and also the amount of skill that you have in making sure that you apply the throttle in just the right amount, not too little and not too much, because if you get too much and you get that wheel spin, you kill your run, or you could even spin out, especially if you're holding that outside line through turn 11 and 12. But if you can get it right, as we saw earlier, even though Ryan O'Sullivan was the big guy to really capitalize on all of that, taking that outside line really did give Josh Burden a really nice run into turn 1. And that's an example of how you can start setting up people 2 or 3 or even 4 corners before you want to make the overtake. You can put them into a position that compromises them for the corner that you actually want to overtake them on. So it will be interesting to see, as Richard Hampstead now right on the back of Wayne Burke, if he decides to do something similar, as we've just got some lap traffic very nicely getting out of the way there. Christian Andres, who's had a couple of incidents throughout the night tonight. But this battle pack is very tight now. 0.7 of a second separating the top 3. And we still have 5 laps to go in this race, so it's becoming pretty tight. As Richard Hampstead just looking...
Burke is starting to really have problems with his rears. You saw all the way through Lukey Heights and down in the braking zone to MG, he was fighting the rear, and you can see he's still having to apply some small steering corrections as he accelerates out of those last couple of corners. Richard Hampstead, meanwhile, he, obviously... The V8 Supercar is an oversteering car, full stop, but Hampstead's having a much better time of coping with it than Burke right now. So El Nabi, who has actually gotten a bit of a gap on them by now, will actually be liking the fact that Hampstead isn't quite able to get past Burke right now. But question is, if Hampstead eventually does pass Burke, will he be able to catch up to and pass El Nabi in the final few laps?
I don't know about passing, but I think catching is definitely possible, and here it comes. Richard Hampstead took a lot of momentum. He wasn't as close as other cars have been making that move, but the momentum that he had was just way too much for Wayne Burke there, and he's going to go through. So both Forzan and Richard able to make the move in the same spot, which means that I guess the delta time loss comparatively to their overtakes is very minimal, which is good for Hampstead because he now has only a 7/10 gap up to first place. And maybe now that Forzan's not so much of a championship contender as Dane was, maybe Richard will be a little more persuaded to use his elbows a little more.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. Coming through onto start lap 32, El Nabi's lap time is a 1 minute 30.316. Despite the overtake, Hampstead still does a 30.195. So he's making up a couple of tenths a lap here.
Yeah, and at a couple of tenths a lap, I mean, it's not quite enough to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not impossible if you're willing to make a lunge in the right place.
No, but also, I mean, it depends if Forzan's doing a little bit of fuel saving, if he ends up making even the most minor mistake. I mean, like that.
I think, we just saw that,
Like that. So commentators curse, no problem. Forzan, you're welcome. But little things like that, even though they seem very insignificant at the time, that could have lost him 3 or 4 tenths, which is half of his lead right now. So, you know, any little tiny mistake like that is exactly what Forzan is going to be trying to avoid. But I mean, another thing, watching these guys, they are taking very different lines through these corners, and Phillip Island is one of those tracks where there are a lot of lines that look fairly quick, and most of them you can use fairly quickly. There's generally only one line which is extremely strong, but having those lines that don't work too badly comparatively does allow for you to kind of explore the track a little more and not lose too much time. If you're trying to find time on your opponent, you can move over the track a little more and try and find out where he might be getting more compared to you. But Richard is still, last lap round actually, Forzan had an advantage by 1/100th of a second. So
looks like Hampstead had the advantage, but still.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
The point you're making stands. The point you're making stands. It looks like Forzan has been able to respond to Hampstead, and put down a pretty good lap time. But wow, I mean, Hampstead's aggression into Honda Corner has been, you know, really something to watch this race. So will he be able to make the time up? I don't know. They're going to have 2 laps to go at the line, so I don't know.
It looks like the cars are set up very differently. Just looking at the attitude, the way that the around, Forzan seems to have a much softer car in the sense that it tends to be rolling around a bit more. I think what we saw at Honda the lap previously where we thought he made a mistake, I'm actually not sure he did. I think that's just kind of the way that his car reacts through that corner. It seems to very heavily lurch onto one side, and he seems to be late apexing a lot of corners compared to Richard, who is coming in fairly early, and the car does seem quite stiff in comparison to Forzan. And as they come over the line again, it's a 1 minute 30.387 Forzan El Nabi and a 1:30.1 to Richard Hampstead. So the gap is closing ever so slightly, but it's going to have to close up a little more and then some if Richard Hampstead is going to be taking the cake home on this one.
Yes, indeed. The championship battle, meanwhile, Dane Warren, I think, is safe from Marlon McMullen for the time being. They've got one car between them, and McMullen, in terms of time, is a long way back from Dane Warren right now, so no threat there. Looking further back, the battle that we've been watching for a lot of the race, Talyancic, Burden, Borg, Hins, Sharp, and Vlasic, all in this battle. It's positions 15th to 20th. That might have a few more chapters in that story left before the race finishes. But coming up to our final lap, The lead is definitely on. Forzan El Nabi versus Richard Hampstead for the race victory here at Phillip Island. Who is it going to be? We will find out in about 1 minute and 40 seconds.
Or 4.44 kilometers.
Yes.
As we go around this beautiful seaside venue in Victoria, Australia. And Richard just doesn't have the legs. He's definitely not as close as he'll want to be right now. 0.3 of a second is by no means a large gap, but it's definitely not enough to feel confident. And he'll be looking to extract every ounce of speed as he can through this southern loop. He's got a nice entry there, and he's cut back nicely using every little bit of road as he gets a very straight and smooth exit coming out. But he's actually lost a bit of time to Forzan through that corner there. So
have a look at how much ground he's making up into Honda Corner, though. That was super aggressive into there. Pity there wasn't a car to pass.
Yeah, I think the way that his car's set up, possibly, he's able to extract a lot more time under brakes, and Forzan might be able to extract a little more time through the corners as they're both just squirreling their way out of turn 7 up through Hayshed.
Yeah, it'll be up to Hampstead now to make up the time through here, but go on, Zach.
I think that Hampstead's going to come over the top of Lukey Heights. He's going to have a look down the hill at MG, but he's just not close enough. I mean, he's very close. He's riding right on the bumper there, but unfortunately, it's not going to be enough for Richard Hampstead. And Forzan El Nabi, as he rounds the final corner at Phillip Island.
What an excellent drive. Fantastic stuff from El Nabi. Just able to get it done. But he's coughing just across the line. Wow. But he managed to do it, didn't he? Wow. Did. Just managed to have enough fuel. And he's going to run out of fuel on the final, on the cool down lap. That's fantastic. Forzan El Nabi with a great victory there. We still have some fights yet to be decided. Hins and Borg having a battle right now. This is positions 18th, 19th, and 20th. But it looks like Thomas Hins is going to get it done. Oh, Mario Vlasic! Oh, goodness me! What an incident there to finish off the race. Greg Sharp and Mario Vlasic in the final corner. What happened there? Looks like Sharp had a little bit of an oversteer moment in the mid-corner. Vlasic tried to take advantage.
I think you'll find that oversteer moment was caused by Mario giving Greg a little bit of a bump there, and just as he tried to come through on the inside, I think Greg was just, Greg had to keep on turning to make the corner, and Mario committed to a gap that was going to close and was rightfully going to close as well. So I'd say Mario's probably at fault for that one, and lucky that he's been the only one to really lose out of that. That's on the last lap, so that's not too bad. But wow, as I said earlier, this Monday night V8 racing has not disappointed, and what a fantastic win there by Forzan El Nabi.
Yeah, utterly fantastic. So, running through the race results, Forzan El Nabi, as we said, takes a fantastic victory, just coughing at the line, so he must have been fuel saving a little bit. Richard Hampstead takes second place, and Wayne Burke, despite coming out in the lead from the pit stop phase, finishes in third. Dane Warren, your pole man, finishes in fourth. Mitchell Sealack in fifth. Marlon McMullen in sixth. So Dane Warren will consolidate a bit of a lead over Marlon in this race. Brenton Hobson in seventh. Myers eighth. Riley Blythe in ninth. And finishing where he started, rounding out the top 10, Guy Leach.
And then we have Ross Rizzo in P11, Stuart Vaughan taking out position 12. Ryan O'Sullivan doing some nice work throughout the race, but ultimately finishing up way worse than he would have liked, 5 positions down in P number 13. Cooper Webster taking out the 7th, well, not 7th row because we're not doing the grid, but P number 14 there. Michael Taliancic rounding out your top 15 with Josh Burton in 16th, Thomas Hins 17th. Brian Borg succumbing to a few unfortunalities throughout that race as well in P18. Greg Sharp with P19, and Mario Vlasic will take out the 20th position with that do or die move in the final corner, and we've got Cameron Dance as the last of your on the lead lap finishes, with Christian Andres a lap down, and Corey Preston and Jamie McKnight. Unfortunately, Jamie having some internet troubles there, and he's been putting in some really nice results throughout the Monday night iRacing V8 Supercar series. So unfortunate to see him out so early, but the rest of the field did not disappoint in any sense, and it was good to see a little more strategy being played out in that race, and overtakes. I mean, it's always good to see overtakes out on the track, but it's nice as well to see that you can come into the sim and outsmart your way into winning a race rather than just doing it on pure pace.
Yeah, of course. And, we saw exactly that from Forzan El Nabi tonight. So congratulations, Forzan. A very nice victory from him. And Richard Hamstead, once again, another fantastic appearance in Monday Night V8s. He has not lost any of his skill. Dane Warren and Marlon McMullen, though, they still remain the story of the season. Your two championship contenders. Warren has the advantage for now, at least. So we'll see you next week for the Monday Night iRacing official V8 Supercar series here on V8s Online. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you very much for joining me, Zach.
It was my absolute pleasure, Reese. Thank you very much for filling in. And we'll be seeing everyone on at the same time next week for Monday Night official V8 Supercar series on V8s Online.